Hello and welcome to another Western Tabletop Battle Report. Today we're doing Victory at Sea. I recently got some of the aircraft carriers for the Japanese and the American fleets, and I just want to use them, see how they're going. I haven't got all the aircraft yet, so I've got an impromptu solution for those, but we'll get into the mission, we'll have a look at it. See you soon. Okay, so here we are with Victory at Sea. The mission today, the Japanese fleet has Attrition. We are playing 1,250 points. The Attrition is a medium mission, so there's no additional or negatory points on the Japanese side. And the Americans, they scored Ultimate Enemy on the mission chart, and so their entire purpose in this sortie is to get rid of the Akagi. You know, the new aircraft carrier that I just got. So let's see how they go. So those missions and the way it works in Victory at Sea is they can actually be independent of one another. And so there's a few things there back and forth. The attrition is simply score more kill points than, or more attrition points than the opposing force when you disengage. And if you do that, you get a major victory. And if you've, I think, suffered less than 25% casualties, it's a major rather than just a minor. I've already done the scouting rolls. I've already set up the first, so those black bases with red dots represent aircraft, and there's bases with blue dots over on the far side and over in the wings on the carriers. They are all numbered, and those numbers refer to squadrons that I've got written on the sheets, so I know what is what when they're going to attack and line up their attack runs and what their defense and everything is. And I'm just about to jump in and do the fan salvo attack from the Japanese torpedoes. There's only 10 profiles because the Fubukis were not upgraded because we're in 1942. So not as considerably more dangerous as it would normally be, as that would be like an extra 12 dice to throw. So in this instance, 10 dice, we're looking for the hits and then randomizing those. So I'll just position us over the dice tray and we'll go rolling. Okay, here we go. 2 sixes, that is 2 hits. I'll randomize which boats they are or ships they are, and then we'll go through and roll damage. And our lucky winners of the torpedo salvo is a Fletcher-class destroyer and the Yorktown aircraft carrier. So that potentially is crippling for the US, depending on what the damage dice roll. So I'll do the destroyer first of all. So each hit transfers into 3d6, and basically it's a devastating weapon. So ones are typically bad, everything else is going to be really good. 12 points of damage, and I can comfortably say that that destroyer is taken out. And now we'll roll for the Akagi, sorry, not the Akagi, for the Yorktown. The Akagi is the Japanese aircraft carrier. 2 4s and a 1. So I'm just going to go and double check all the critical information and bits and pieces like that, torpedo belts, and we'll see what damage was actually dealt. Okay, yes indeed. So the 1 is an automatic miss, as the natural ones always miss on damage and never successful. And the 4s, the Yorktown aircraft carrier actually has a torpedo belt rating of 2. So the 4s actually get reduced down by 2 each, and so it's actually instead of the 8 points of damage, it's only 4 points of damage. And obviously none of those are criticals either. So the Yorktown with a lucky escape. All right, we'll do a survey of the smoking wreck that is that other destroyer, and then we'll get into initiative for turn 1. I realized in my haste to get the game started and actually play with the miniatures, I told you what the total points was for the armies, but I didn't actually go through them. So for the Japanese list, we start with the Akagi class carrier, no refits, 250 points base, and it has 9 Mitsubishi Zeros, 4 Dive Bomber D3AL Vals, and 4 Kate Torpedo Bombers. We then have 4 Fubuki Destroyers at their base cost of 50, so that's another 200. The Furataka, which is 225. The Mogami and the Kumano, which are both Mogami class cruisers at 280 points apiece. And so this whole lot then comes out to pretty much bang on the nose at 1250. I think it might be slightly under at about 1235. But literally no refits at 1942, just base cost for virtually everything that's on that list. What's interesting within that particular space is, aside from one of the Fubukis and the Akagi, everything else is actually just straight from the starter set. So it's not optimized, it's just starter set plus some extra stuff, largely being a carrier and one more destroyer. So nice and easy to get that build. I'll just zip over to the American side. So for the Americans, they have the base of 1250 points, but because of the mission that we're playing Ultimate Enemy for the Americans, they get a 10% bonus. So they're actually coming in at 1375, which they've totaled up down here. They have the Idaho, which is a New Mexico class battleship. It's got a couple of refits. They've got increased AA to local level 2. It's got the radar added, and ironically, the attack dice goes on and comes off within the same year. We have the Yorktown class aircraft carrier, 280 points, and this actually had addition of radar and increased anti-aircraft to level 3, and then 24 flights broken down between half of it is Wildcat fighters, and then we've got SBD-1 dive bombers, 6 of those, and we have TBD-1 devastator torpedo bombers. I think that's actually SBD-2 bombers, but either way, we've got dive bombers, we've got torpedo bombers, and we've got 2 sets of escorting sets of fighters. We have 4 Fletcher destroyers at their base cost. We have the Portland, which had radar added and upgraded anti-aircraft. The Chicago, with radar added and upgraded with anti-aircraft twice. And then 1 additional Fletcher destroyer. And that rounds it out exactly at 1375. Okay, that is the end of movement 1. And as you can see on the right hand side, the Japanese player, whilst they lost the initiative, the Japanese fleets are typically able to reposition very quickly. So they've all been able to pull off approximately 90-degree turns or slightly greater than that, with the exception of the aircraft carrier, which is fine because he needs to continue to fly into the wind in order to launch and recover aircraft. So he's probably just going to have to stay protected on the back edge as much as possible. The black bases that you can see starting to encroach, just coming in on the side just here. They are a pair of American Wildcat fighters that were there from the beginning, and the Japanese ones drove in at the edge here. So they're sort of positioning and jostling at the moment. The Japanese were successful in launching the standard 1 aircraft, which was another Mitsubishi A6M20. So we've got lots of fighters on the board, and we've got 2 more fighters that have come on for the Americans as they passed their crew quality check, and the Japanese did not. The Americans slowly turning, but they do have the initiative on these shots. So we'll start out the shooting phase, and I'll come back once all the damage is dealt. Okay, I wasn't entirely sure when eyeballing it, so did a bunch of measuring with the pre-measure for the shooting, and no one is at maximum visual range to engage. So they're about, I think it was 33 or 34 inches away from the bigger guns to be able to engage, and so that means they cannot. We don't have any observation aircraft up to allow beyond the horizon attacks because they were all used in scouting. So we're just going to proceed straight into turn 2 and I'll again determine initiative off camera. I'll roll for the return of the American destroyer that was in scouting, and then we'll get into the next round of initiative, movement, and trade-offs, and we'll see how we can go, see whether they can take out the Americans can take out the Akagi aircraft carrier, which is just running off the side down there, or whether or not the Japanese can get in, do a quick enough, hard enough strike, and disappear. We'll see what happens. Okay, the end of movement for turn 2. So this turn, the Japanese actually had the initiative. So the Americans, wanting to close with that carrier as quickly as possible, squared up and essentially tried to drive directly forward. They're going to have to brave the guns of the Japanese to push through to get to that carrier. Otherwise, they're just going to be held at bay. The Japanese, again, have sort of tried to defensively mill around a little bit with their agile ships. They can turn essentially with those ships that I've got from the starter set demo and what we've got listed on that list. Aside from the aircraft carrier, every single one of those ships is able to make a turn of 45 degrees for every 1 inch that they move, because they're all agile, which means that fleet is actually very quick to reposition, to present broadside, to close off and narrow their flank and whatever they want to do. They pivot very, very quickly. They are very fragile though, it's a bit of a glass cannon, so they've got to be really careful with them. So they're just trying to screen the aircraft carrier at the moment until the aircraft carrier is able to get up some of its more dangerous, I guess, flights, the bombers and the torpedo bombers. And the collection of black bases that you see just in the middle there is where the first fighter scrum is occurring. So the 3 Mitsubishi Zeros went in, the 3 squadrons went in first and engaged the 2 sets of Wildcats, and then there was another 2 Wildcats groups that flew up in behind them. So we're going to end up with some skirmishing there. So I'm going to go through and roll all of those attacks. The ships are in range of, typically long range of each other. Lots of things moving 6 or more, lots of destroyers. So we're probably looking for 6s all round. Again, we'll see what happens. We might get lucky. And the New Mexico class battleship, the Idaho, they're trying to get its guns in range as quickly as possible on that carrier. All right, I'll see what happens. Okay, starting with the Kumano. I'm going to get that confused throughout the whole video. The Kumano, which is the Center Megami class heavy cruiser there, is going to shoot out towards, I think it's the Portland, or it might be the Northampton, just on the very left here of the screen. We're going to take some shots. 24 inches, long range, it's moved. We're not presenting any arc here, so I'm going to need, as I understand it, to be 6s. Okay, I've got 2 in there. Rolling to beat armor. I appreciate these dice, you may not be able to see. If that becomes a problem, I'll just change them out. 3 and a 4, okay, 1 point of damage each, so that's 2 points. It was a Portland, and the Portland has decided to return fire with its 2 main batteries back at the Kumano. And that's disgraceful. That's nothing above a 3, so that's a complete miss. Okay, the Japanese Furitaka is going to fire out at the Portland and just continue to knock some hull points and hit points off of it. Okay, 6 and 3 2s, so 2's obviously out, but the 6 will be in. Was a long range, but probably not the aspect broadside aspect, but it doesn't matter. A 6 will hit. A 4 will beat the armor, so that's another point down. I'm probably going to have the Northampton fire at the Furitaka, providing this range, and so I'll get back to that in just a moment. Okay, that damage point is put on the Portland. Now we go with the Northampton into Furitaka. Oh, we got some 2 hits there, which is good. All right, needing to get a 2 or higher because they're not very well armored. 2 points of damage. Okay, the Megami itself now, which is this larger one here, is also going to shoot at the Portland. And the reality is that part of this game is whittling away those damage points wherever you can. So we're just going to make the best of it and try and get some more hits across them. Get these in the box. Needing sixes. Successfully rolled 1. And then onto the damage from the shot. Yes, I do 1 point worth of damage. So typically all of these hits are actually plunging fire as well. But the plunging fire is essentially, where are my rules here? Quite simply, you get +1 to the damage dice result. I haven't had anything like at the break point of armor or not make it on the armor. And the bonuses don't turn those things into criticals. The criticals have to be natural rolls. So everything's actually been 3s and 4s. And so, yeah, nothing else has gone through. But that will change, I suspect, very shortly. New Mexico to fire. Okay, so the New Mexico with pre-measuring has assessed its options and is going to take a shot straight into the Megami, as it'll need 5s instead of 6s due to it presenting a broadside arc. So only 2 turrets can fire. They are 3 dice each and 3 damage dice each per hit, so that has the potential to cause massive problems. But yeah, we are 5s to hit. 1. Yep, that's about standard for my rolling, unless I'm teaching someone physically on the spot, in which case they all would have been 6s. So now we're going to go and roll in for the weapon trait. Now this has +2 on its penetration, being a battleship gun, but I still have to beat the armor as normal, and a 1 typically would fail. Okay, 3, that's probably going to go through because the armor's 3 and it goes up to a 5, so it's definitely going to penetrate. However, I should have rolled 3 damage dice. Oh, that's 2 6s. Well, they're definitely going to be problematic. So those 6s possibly are going to be criticals. I'll record that there's 3 points of damage on the Megami. 1 critical, 1 not. All right, so let's go through what sort of critical. 7. Let's just refer to my quick reference chart here. 7. Oh, 7 is weapons. That's not fantastic. All right, first damage result for weapons critical is a secondary weapon damage. So they're going to take 1 extra. So that's 4 damage altogether so far. They also lose 1 attack dice, and I have to roll for what that is on. 5. So I've lost it from my anti-aircraft battery. Well, that's annoying. Okay. Such is the way of playing games. So the Megami has -1 attack dice on his anti-aircraft. I wonder if that will be pivotal with, you know, an aircraft scrum happening. Okay, I just went and checked the measurements and the modifiers for the destroyers trying to strike out and hit any targets. The American destroyers are quite simply out of range, and the Japanese destroyers, whilst they have range, if they were targeting anything else but a destroyer, they could go for 6s, but because they're a destroyer as the targets, that -1 simply means that they can't target them. So nothing going to happen there, so we go straight to the aircraft scrums. So these are, you have to break them essentially in a 1-to-1 ratio, and then any fighter base that is not attached to an enemy but is touching a friend can support that friend. Now they actually can support more than one friend if they fulfill that condition, so you do get a lot of flexibility in that, I guess, that tactical element. You could have them double up, for example, to support 2 things, and they're never at risk of being destroyed. So that's kind of cool. They give you a bonus +1 in the combat. As it turns out, whilst the Japanese had done that to try and start that process, they were counterattacked, and so we've actually got 3 dogfights. Two of them are simply one squadron versus one squadron, and the third is a squadron versus squadron with a support. So there'll be an extra +1 on that side. So for the first two that I'll do, they are simply a 50-50 as who's going to win, and then the other one, the Americans outnumber the zeros. So I'll do quite simply, I'm just going to roll the 2 dice, and I'll roll the American dice first, followed by Japanese dice. First fight. In the box, America rolls a 1. Japan rolls a 4. They win the first dogfight. Second dogfight, America rolls a 3. Japan rolls a 2. America wins the second dogfight. And now this is the one where America has the +1. Okay, so they're at a 6. So the only way that the Japanese player is going to keep that second set of fighters around is if they roll a natural 6. Just like that. Wow, okay. So what that means is that in that particular dogfight, they actually don't resolve any combat. They are still engaged with one another. There's not a clear winner. I will, however, remove the other 2 bases, and then we should be at the end of the turn. Yep, we are at the end of the turn. I've removed those bases from the scrum that's happening, although it's still an interesting fight. Like, the Japanese absolutely could still win. So we're going to roll to see if the other destroyer comes on, and then from what edge. No, it does not. Okay, I'll do a little bit of board cleanup and reset, and we will be into turn number 3 of the 8 turns that the fleets have. Okay, and we now have the end of turn 3 movement. Japan pushing up, being the aggressor, once again had the initiative. So America moved to position, get its bigger ships, trying to get closer to the Akagi aircraft carrier to start putting shots on it as the primary target. Japan not making it easy for them. Couple of different fighter splits. So Japan chose to move their aircraft first and put escorts across the newly raised torpedo bombers, and blocked off one of the other dogfights. And America also raised 2 torpedo bombers in addition to the previous one from before, and split off one of the supporting attackers to escort that torpedo bomber. The escorting is quite important when you have a lot of fighters running around, because they will just decimate any bombers that they're stuck with, and simply hold them up. Fighters will stop any other aircraft moving until the dogfight is over. So you really need to escort them if there are enemy fighters in the vicinity. Okay, we did a little bit of orders this time as well. So we had one of the destroyers from the Japanese side used the evade, so they'll be harder to hit, but generate significantly less attack dice. Probably some anti-aircraft fire is going to come in, I think, in the next turn or 2, as the aircraft start to stream overhead to attack the ships. In particular, how many waves is going to get across to attack that aircraft carrier for Japan. That would be interesting. Let's get into the shooting. It is the Japanese initiative first. We may even have some torpedo strikes. Okay, Japan is going to open up with the Furataka, thinking that it's potentially the most vulnerable in the positioning of the fleets. So one of its light gun profiles, it's going to shoot at the closest destroyer in front of it. It is restricted, and so that means that the light gun profile goes from 2 shots down to a single shot, restricted on the front forward arcs and everything like that. It's also a weak gun, so it can't cause criticals, but that's fine. We're actually looking just to get some damage on the destroyer. So we are 4+ to hit normally. We're firing at a destroyer, which makes it 5s. That destroyer move fast, but we're negating that because of our light guns. And we're actually in our short range, so there's no range modifier. So it's simply firing at a destroyer at -1. Rolled a natural 1, which is a complete miss. Now when we get to the main two forward turrets, they're going to shoot the Portland again. This one is, so the Portland is not presenting us a broadside. It's moved 6. It's within our short range, so we're currently net -1. Let me just mentally check that and look at the list again. But I'm fairly sure this also will be on 5s. So looking at this, the fast-moving target, the target must have actually moved more than 6. The Portland only moved 6, and therefore I do not suffer that -1. So this is actually just natural 4s on 2 front turrets. Yeah, okay, let's do it. And I proceed to roll a 1, 2 2s, and a 6. I guess I'll just take the 1 hit then. Law of averages, whatever. Damage dice multiplies out just to the 1. Do get a 4, so no critical, but we do a point of damage to the Portland. After a quick bit of pre-measuring and checking things out, New Mexico, the Idaho, the New Mexico class battleship, is in range of the aircraft, the Japanese aircraft carrier with its forward guns. So that's certainly what its forward guns are going to fire at. Its light gun profile and rear gun profile, however, is actually going to shoot at the Furataka, being essentially the kind of big sneaky threat that can cause problems, with several torpedoes available and some not too shabby guns at closer ranges. So I'm actually going to fire the light gun profiles first. There are 2 of them. One of them is at, I think it was, they actually might both be at extreme range there, which is fine, because, no, it's not fine. That means they'll miss, because I'll get to a 7 to hit. Okay, so they miss. The rear turret won't miss, because that's in short range. So that's going to be short range, it'll be 4s, moved fast, which is then to 5s. But let's see if the Furataka can survive 6 battleship shells throwing at it for 5s. Apparently so, because out of 6 dice on 5s, only 1 of them hit. I mean, that's not too far off averages, but I want big booms. I want to see things go bang. All right, on to the damage dice roll, which is a conversion of 3, and there's +2 on these, and 6s will be criticals. Okay, 1's auto fail. 2 goes to a 4, that will penetrate, and 6 goes to an 8, but the 6 is actually all I care about because it's 4 damage. I'll put that there for the moment. Do we convert? Yes, we do. 4. So that is an engine hit. Let's get a little engine marker out here. Engine hit is no extra damage, but it does slow the ship down, which is not really what the Furataka wants. And 2 points of damage, which I'll mark that up in a second. Yeah, not really what the Furataka wants, but I suppose all things considered, it's not that bad. Could have been much, much worse. Then shooting at the aircraft carrier. So this is at long range for the guns, for the Idaho, which is like, it's just crazy to think that, sorry, extreme range for the guns. It's at 30 inches. So it's like, it's going to reach out and touch within just like 29.5, whatever, but it's able to shoot. It's got 2 sets of forward turrets. It's 6 shots coming in, and it would normally need 6s, but the aircraft carrier is presenting a broadside large target, so it actually needs 5s because it did not move particularly fast. Oh, that's not good. I take it all back about the bad rolling. That's 2 5s and 2 6s. and 2 ones, ironically. So the ones are definitely out, but that is 4 hits. This is potentially devastating as each of these multiply out to 3. So I have 12 damage dice coming at the Akagi, who the Akagi doesn't have the best armor save. Sorry, I just managed to drop the phone. Yeah, the aircraft carrier, the Akagi, does not have the best armor value in the world. It's only 3+. So anything on these dice that is a 3+2 or better is essentially going to cause a problem. 1s are bad, but essentially 2s are going to cause damage. And then 6s are really bad because they will be criticals as well. Okay, so we have 2 1s, so they will auto miss. I have 2 6s, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 points worth of damage just flat before anything else. There goes the phone again. Apologies everyone if you got a little queasy. You can tell that I've got a fantastic setup for this. So it's actually 10 points of damage, and I've got 2 possible conversions on criticals, neither of which convert. So the aircraft carrier took 10 points of damage, but got off lucky. Okay, here we go. The Kumano is going to fire its 3 main turret weapons into the Portland again. And it's going to fire its restricted light guns into the nearest destroyer just there. So I'll do the light guns first of all, as these are actually going to need, they ignore the fact that they're fast moving. So it's 4 to 5 for attacking a destroyer. Then I have got the +1 back for the broadside that we're in. So we're in their flank. So we're actually going natural 4s against a destroyer with my light guns. 2 hits. Roll for damage. 2 1s. It's one of those games, fellas. All right. Into the Portland. Okay. 2s and 1s are out. 3s are out, which leaves a single 5. Which does hit at least. So I get 1 point of damage for my troubles. And then it'll be the Americans' turn to fire back. They're actually going to go straight into the Portland, who is taking not quite a beating, but enough damage that it's annoying. But he's able to open up with all his turrets this time. So his rear turret is actually going to target the Megami here, and the forward 2 turrets are going to target that same space. The light gun profile that he has is probably going to pick off the destroyer in front, but I'll do the main shots at the Megami first. At least the low dice rolls are going both ways. 3 6s for hits there, and so, you know, it's movement for being fast, but the ranges are essentially short now, so it's just 4s, and then you've got either movement or broadside that typically you're going to swing it, but that's 3 successful hits. And rolling to convert for the armor hit on the Megami. I have 1 fail, but I have 2 successful points worth of damage, so trading back 2 points there. And the Kumano. I don't know why it's so hard for me to say that. It's just my brain automatically goes to say kimono, which is not the same word. Okay, and then the light gun profile, which this one I don't think is actually going to be restricted. Yep, here we go. So, judging that roughly by eye, we should be under 12-ish. Look at that, 10. It's a bit scary when you're in a wargamer measuring stuff for so long that you can eyeball the table and know that sort of stuff, but anyway. Ten is just inside the short range band for the light guns. So we're going from 4, firing at a destroyer, 5s, they've got a long target, so it's back to 4s, and because they're light guns, they ignore fast moving. Okay, that's better, 50% hit ratio, that's what I'm looking for, and convert damage on that Fubuki. That should be 3 points worth of damage. Again, I can't cause criticals with light guns because they're weak. Alright, that won't kill the Fubuki, but it's probably going to cripple that one. Okay, and the battle and the shells continue to shoot. So we'll do the Megami down the bottom here, up at the destroyer with its light guns, trying to get a couple of extra hits. And again, it will put 3 of its main front turrets into the Portland, try and get it taken out. And it'll actually, with its rear guns, if I've got the arc, which I think I do, they're going to try and put the rear guns over on those destroyers. I'm going to try and put 1 gun on each of them. So I'll do the light guns first at the forward destroyer. So this is 6 reduced to 3 for only being able to shoot half. And in this instance, I am destroyer, ignore movement, range is in my short band already. So yeah, and it's a large profile. So this is natural 4s as well. 2 hits with light guns. Now that's a 2 and a 6, so that's probably going to be 2 hit points worth. I'll just put those over here. I'll do the forward turrets into the Portland. 2s pretty much never hit, but 6s almost always do if you've got a valid target. These only just multiply out to 1. I'm going to pay that as a 4 just because it's simple enough. So that's 2 hits and damage on the Portland. Then I have, and these ones I'll need to measure again, so bear with me. Okay, it's about 15 and 14, which is both within my short range for my main guns. They're presenting a broadside, so I'm +1, -1 for shooting at a destroyer. So that's net 0, but then I'm -1 on 5s because they both moved 7. So I'll do the closest one first. 1 hit. A 3 should do a point of damage, and then I'll do the further one. 1 hit. And a 5 will definitely do a point of damage. So again, no criticals out of that, it's just piling damage on and trying to get those hull points down. It'll then turn over to the American turn, which they're probably going to lead with the Northampton and try and get some more shots in before the destroyers start engaging, and then we'll do the aircraft, and then we'll do the last status phase pieces, which I sort of skipped over last time, but we'll do those this time. Alright, just running around doing some more calculations, pre-measuring our angles and ranges so I can try and run through these attacks. The Northampton is in fact going to go as the next American ship, and then the destroyers are going to go backwards and forwards. That will probably change up next turn where all the torpedoes start flying around. But down to this destroyer in the front, he's going to put all 6 of his light gun profiles on the flank, and he's actually going to send a rear turret as well, but I'll do the light guns first. So the light guns are ignoring fast, they're at long range, extreme range actually -2, and then so -2 would be 6s, firing at a destroyer would make it 7s, but he's also showing me the larger profile of his target, so I'm back to 6s. Got none on that, which is fine, counting that 2 as a 2, just like I did before. Then I have a rear turret that's coming in. Now this one is actually short range for the rear turret, so it's short range, firing at a destroyer, showing broadside, and then movement. So this is 5s. Oh goodness, 2 6s and a 5. That's not good. Okay. So that's 3 successful hits on that destroyer from the main turret weapon. Managed to roll a 1. Awesome, awesome. But I do have 2 points of damage on that Fubuki, which he only had 2 left. So he blows up in a massive fireworks, which we'll put a marker on in just a moment. But he will sink. And then I proceed to attack with my other 2 main forward turrets, and they are targeting the Furutaka. So this also, Furutaka moved 7, is not presenting a broadside, but is also within my short range. So this is just on 5s. Let's get that in the box. Cool, rolled a 1 anyway. I do, however, have 2 5s and a 6. Ah, that's really nice to see. Attempting to break armor plus potentially criticals. 1 is a auto fail. Typically won't ever. It could break armor if it was it had modifiers on it, but not in this case. The 2 4s definitely go through. That's another 2 points worth of damage. Okay, we'll be into a destroyer slugfest in just a second. I'll actually probably do all the destroyer attacks backwards and forwards, and if we get a torpedo strike in range that's reasonable, I'll record that, but otherwise I'll just do it and sort it out and then go to the dogfight. Okay, end of the turn, rapid fire wrap up. So you can see a big smoke marker there. One of the destroyers was indeed taken out. And there were a few shots traded backwards and forwards that dropped a couple of hit points back and forth. Another of the 0 squadrons was shot down by the Wildcats, which is about true to history, ironically. But there's still one that's in a duel. The same one that was in a duel that got stuck before is also stuck now. So they are just holding each other up right now. They may get attacked and tagged on by another dogfighting unit, but we'll see what happens. Probably better just to jump in and support than stack it in, but that's fine. The reserve destroyer for the Americans also did not show up, so it still has not appeared. It's getting tense now. We're about to move into turn 4, and yeah, it's all to play for. The kills stand at 1 destroyer apiece, one of which was killed by a preemptive torpedo strike, and one that was just blown up by a combined firepower. So the Portland is running out of health. The Furutaka is running out of health. So they're probably the next 2 that are going to go if they continue to get focused on. But of course, there's the Idaho battleship that's targeting the aircraft carrier. That's going to make a mess of things if it gets a chance to start happily broadsiding. That could be a real problem. But there's a few destroyer pickets with torpedoes just waiting to jump and pounce on it. So we will come back after that is done. Okay, movement phase for turn 4 has been done. You can see some of the ships are slightly overlapping each other on the bases. I tend to do that rather than automatically force them over and above, essentially past the range that they'd be allowed to move, so their maximum movement sort of drags them back. And I don't mind overlapping the bases if I'm not, for the majority, overlapping the ship itself. Those bases are approximate of where those ships are meant to be, and it's easy enough to tell and work through the fire angles and ranges, even though it becomes a bit of a parking lot. But the game still flows even while doing that. Technically, in the rules, you're meant to push, if the bridge crosses over the other side of the ship to the bridge, the entire base of that is meant to move forward. But that results in some unrealistic maneuvers. So I don't like that. So I just don't do it. We have a few aeroplanes that are flying around. A lot of planes are going to be in range to hit their targets next turn. Potentially 6 different targets. A lot of guns are probably going to be brought onto bear on the aircraft carrier, which is off screen to the right here. The Japanese Akagi, that's potentially going to take quite a bit of damage, I think, this turn, as the American guns are drawing ever closer, and the destroyers that have pushed through with the intent focused on getting to that aircraft carrier. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Americans have the initiative, and so they will open up with the shooting. And with USA having the initiative, the New Mexico is going to open up. Now, I did actually physically move the New Mexico on the board because I realized I'd been moving it too fast. I rechecked all the measurements and it wouldn't have affected any of the previous firing or anything like that. So that's all okay. The benefit of massive guns. But its correct position is now on the board, representing its much slower speed. So it has 2 sets of light guns with 6 shot profiles on each of them, and it's going to put 3 onto the Megami at the front here, and then 3 onto this lead destroyer. Then its second set of light guns is going to put longer range, 3 on this one, and then 3 on the Megami. So we'll go through and do those. I'll shoot at the destroyers first of all, and see if we can cause some more damage and take them out. So first destroyer coming in, presenting a profile, is a destroyer, moved but firing light guns. So this is actually straight 4s. 2 hits. And 2 successful, even at the -2s, 2 successful points worth of damage. So I'll just chalk that up on one of the Fubukis there. I think that's number 1. And we'll go into the second set of guns at the other Fubuki destroyer, and then I'll do the 6 onto the Megami. 2 1s and a 4. The 4 will hit, same odds as before. The 6 will do a point of damage. Put that over on that one. And then I'm actually going to roll these light gun profiles essentially together, because for what I'm doing at the moment, it's exactly the same. And these are actually in the closer range bracket, not point blank, but getting closer. They were point blank when I placed it illegally. Alright, here we go. Okay, I don't think the 2s are going to hit because I've only got a +1 bonus, but the 5 and the 3 6s definitely will. Megami has an armor of 3. Okay. So I have to -2 to all of these. So 6 becomes 4, 4 becomes 2, 3 becomes 1, etc., etc. And that actually means that I needed 5s to do damage. So there's only 1 point of damage on the Megami. And it can't cause criticals because they are weak light guns, but that's okay. Then we've got the big ones. So this is the 4 turrets shooting at the aircraft carrier. So these are the ones that are going to be nasty. 4 turrets, 3 shots apiece, all 4 broadsiding across to the Akagi. These are at long range for -1, but the aircraft carrier is presenting a wide target, so they're back to +1 and therefore natural 4s. Okay, I'll take the 1s out. I'll take the 2s out, and I'll take the 3s out. Pretty average rolling. That was about 7 misses. We got 4 successful hits, and then each of these multiplies out to a 3-shot damage dice. And that instantly makes you feel better about not hitting as much, because there are 12 damage dice. sixes are criticals and I need to beat their armor, there's a +2. Only one critical. Now, interestingly, with the damage, ones do not auto-fail for damage. You're rolling to damage and hurt the craft. And so as long as you are able to successfully add your modifiers and hit their armor value, it will do a point of damage. So in this instance, everything is +2. So the ones become threes, and the 3 is the minimum score to do damage. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 points of damage. Just marking this to the side here. And a possible critical conversion. Yes, we do have a conversion. What type of critical is it? An 8. 8, I think, is on crew. It is on crew. So there is a crew hit on the Megami, which is a bit of a challenge for them. It's no additional damage dealt. However, it is -1 attack dice. Where is that attack dice coming from? Their light gun profile. Or anti-aircraft profile, sorry. Cool. Okay. So I'll mark that down. I'll put that information on the card. But that is the New Mexico having fired off. We've successfully crippled that Fubuki destroyer that we hit. And the Megami only took the 1 point. So yeah, very interesting first round. Okay, so Japan actually has a lot of options on what to shoot with, where and how. They've decided to go with Fubuki destroyer number 4. We think that a torpedo salvo at almost point-blank range against the Northampton is going to be a more preferable option to anything else to start with, considering that the New Mexico is a bit further away, which would be obviously a torpedo target. But the destroyer is probably in the best position to take out or at least severely cripple one of the other destroyers. So he's going to try that. So it's the grey Fubuki just at the back here, and we're going to torpedo into the Northampton. We're going to shoot the destroyer that's just crossing its wake with 2 rear guns, and we're going to put 1 shot into the Portland, who is across there. And the torpedoes will be the big one, but I'll just fire out the other shots. So here is the forward shot. 2's going to miss. Rear shots on the destroyers. 3s. Now 3s will actually, what are we? Yeah, just a flat +1. So they will actually hit because I ignore the fast moving and the destroyer. Oh no, they're a destroyer, so I needed 4s still because I've got +1 for range, but I don't have +1 for a big target. However, the torpedo salvo is a bit different. So 3 torpedo 1 shots. These are almost point blank. What are we? 3 inches? Yep. So we're at point blank. So I've got +1. It's a large target, so I've got another +1. Torpedoes firing is typically a -2 base, and so this is currently straight 4s, and there's no movement bonus for the Northampton. All right, about 50%, which is about what we normally would expect. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's multiply these out. So these torpedoes multiply out to 3 dice apiece. And these are devastating. So that means the devastating is regardless of the armor value, whatever the die face is shown, is a point of damage dealt. And on top of that, 5s and 6s are criticals. That size because I only rolled a single 5 and no 6s. Okay, it's all right. sometimes you just expect really big things. I wasn't even sure whether I wanted to fire all the torpedoes. It looks like it was a good thing that I did do that. 18, 19, 20, 20, 20. Okay, so 22 points worth of torpedo damage, which that in itself is actually quite a lot. It's actually 27 because there's a 5 here. So 27 is quite a bit. Let's see if the critical converts. No, it does not. So it's just straight 27 points worth of damage. Let's go find out how much the Northampton actually has. Okay, you can see I've put some smoke markers over by the Northampton. The Northampton only has 23 hit points, and so in a massive explosion of damage, it has been destroyed. So that turned out that the Fubuki was probably the right ship to start with, but now again it turns to an American salvo, and they also have destroyers that are in torpedo range, so this could be bad. Okay, here we go. So America is going to open up with this destroyer who's coming through, and it'll be torpedoes and the light guns into the Kumano as it's steaming past. I'll do the light guns first because they're relatively simple. We are in the aft arc, so there's no large aspect here, and it has moved more than 6, so it's -1, but I am at my preferred point blank range, so it's +1, which means -1, +1, we're natural 4s. Succeeded in 1 hit, and it will do 1 point of damage. Put that over there. And then we come to the torpedo strike. So I've got 10 torpedo shots coming in, essentially a salvo from the 2 rounds. These again are 1 shots, devastating. They are -2 for, excuse me, -2 for the being a torpedo, but there's no range modifier, no aspect or anything like that. So these are flat 6s to re-roll, so that's not ideal, but I couldn't get within 2 inches, and I'm not going to get a better chance as I move out towards. I've got 2 others chasing the carrier, so let's see what we can do. Okay, I have 2 hits. Now, unfortunately, at this point in the war, American torpedoes are still not fantastic. So of these hits, they're potentially duds. Both of them are duds. So that is all the torpedo shots from that destroyer wasted to go through, and it goes back to a Japanese turn to shoot. And I already know what we're going to open up with here, and it's going to be the destroyer right there above the Kumano, shooting into the Portland. So that's 1, 2, 3 sets of torpedoes. I'm just going to point blank rake it straight from the forward arc. So I have a better range on these torpedoes, so they're getting +1, which means that instead of 6s, I am needing 5s. The light guns I also have to declare, and they are simply going to fire forward into the Portland as well. 1, 2, 3 hits on these torpedoes. Firing light guns. Succeed in 1 hit. Light guns do no damage actually. And then torpedoes is another story. Devastating crit on 5 and 6. 2 5s and a 6. So that right there is already 16 points worth of damage. 22, 24, 25, 26, 27. I have a feeling that the Portland doesn't have that much health left, so 27 is probably going to kill it, because I think it was only on about 18. But let's roll for conversion. 2 conversions. We got a vital system as well as a 9. So The 9 is a crew hit, and so that again is minus attack dice and shrapnel, but not else. You can sort of survive that. The 10, which is the 0, that's a vital system. That's a 5, which means secondary explosions. Well, if I had any thought about this ship surviving, that very quickly just evaporated. This is an extra 4d6 damage, plus increase the critical score of every area by 1, which is going to do a flat 2 extra damage regardless, plus the 4 here. So, I mean, we're looking at sort of in excess of 30 something points worth of damage off this salvo. Oh goodness, okay. That's actually 3 5s, 15, so that's the extra 21, 25. So it's extra 20, so it's 50 something. I mean, that ship is gone, absolutely gone. It's nothing that none of the cruisers will be able to take that necessarily. So I'll just put some more smoke markers down, and we'll flip over to another American attack from a destroyer. So yes, perhaps a lesson in target priority for me as I'm playing through the game. Japanese torpedoes are dangerous, but that's all right. We will keep going. So I have a American destroyer over here. We're going to try and sink the Furataka. So to do that, I am simply going to throw both sets of torpedoes at it, plus its light guns. I'll do the light guns first, which we get 2 hits, and what is that? It goes to a 0, but we got 1 point of damage. So we'll add that to the Furataka over here. And then I've got 2 sets of torpedoes. So again, like normally I was hoping to try and use these on the aircraft carrier, but I do have some torpedo bombers coming that might do the damage. But I really need to get rid of some of these Japanese ships because they infiltrated and caused a significant amount of damage. Okay. So I am at my short range, and so it's -2 for firing a torpedo. So 4s goes to 6s. They're presenting a large target, which would normally make it 5s. However, it moved. Actually, Furataka didn't move more than 6. So yes, we are on 5s. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's a bit better. I might actually get some torpedo hits on it. Because I have to now, American torpedoes, I've got to do that reroll and get successful conversions. Oh, I got 2. Excellent. Okay. Now we're in business. Now I can actually get some damage back on the Furataka and the Japanese fleet. 5s and 6s are critical. Furataka's only got 17 hit points, so this should kill it. Yes. So that's 22, 26, 28 points of damage with 4 potential criticals. Do they convert? I have 2 conversions. Not that it matters, but I did this to the Portland, so I'm going to do it to the Furataka. 5 and a 3, which is engines and weapons, both incrementing by how much? I should have done those individually, sorry. Weapons is a 4 and crew is a 4. Okay, so both trading off 4s. Extra d6 damage. Okay, so an extra 1 plus 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, okay, it's very much dead in a similar explosion. So one of those ships goes down, and then we switch back to a Japanese, and I'll probably might do one of the Megamis, right? Because I got one more Japanese destroyer, but I might do a Megami first. Okay, yes, so I will be following up with a Mogami, the Mogami class. The Commando is going to fire. Japanese torpedoes got really, really good. The Fubukis at the moment were running around with Type 90, which were okay, but they weren't fantastic. The Megamis were fitted out with Type 93s when they went into service, which were the long lance Japanese torpedoes. The Megamis only get 1 salvo of these because they did that first strike attack at the beginning of the game. But their point blank +1 range is 8 inches, which is quite good. And so I've measured from the Kumano to both a destroyer and the New Mexico. Originally, I was going to try and nuke out the Northampton, but a destroyer took care of that for me. So we're going to go 3 torpedoes, two torpedo profiles onto the New Mexico, 2 torpedo profiles onto the destroyers, 1 each. One of them is going to be a harder shot. And then I've got the main turrets plus the light guns. These things are crazy gunned up. Even though they don't necessarily shoot a lot per guns, they can engage a lot of targets. So I'm going to do the full broadside at the New Mexico first. Of the 5 turrets, 2 shots apiece to try and get some damage in. And these will be in my short range, in my point blank range. All point blank range. So we are point blank plus large profile. So these, scarily enough, will actually hit on 2s. And I proceed to roll 4 1s as well in that space. So, okay, sure. All right. 6 turret shot hits. They're just 1 damage dice conversions each, and I'm going to have to beat a fairly high armor. They get no modifier on that, and they need to beat an armor of 6. So normally, if you were at longer ranges, you're getting that penetration bonus. In this case, I'm not. I've got 4 misses, but I do have 2 6s. Now, those 6s obviously can convert to criticals. So I'll just mark it. I've got 2 points of damage, and I have 1 critical conversion. Sweet. All right. What type of critical? Uh-oh. Vital system. Okay. What's the vital system? This could be really bad. A 1. Okay. There's never such a thing as like a good vital system that goes bang, but a 1 is like the least damage based. So bridge destroyed, take an additional further damage. So we're at 3 points total. For the rest of the game, the ship is no longer able to perform orders as their command structure has been obliterated. So the New Mexico can't take any other orders. That has consequences. But wow, okay. Now we're going to open up with the torpedoes. So this is also natural force. 2 of those hit in that salvo. Devastating plus critting on 5 and 6. Now there is a torpedo belt involved, so that's going to change the actual modifiers against the armor, but criticals will always go through. Oh dear. Okay. 2 6s and a 5, so they're going to be criticals. So they will, even if they don't beat the armor, they'll potentially still cause the critical damage. So they won't beat the armor because the torpedoes don't have, excuse me, any armor penetration. And I still have to beat the armor in normally to do damage. But they're a torpedo with a torpedo belt. So even though they cause criticals, they are going to be reduced slightly. And let's just check the torpedo belt value. 2. So that should be reducing these by about 2 points, or the full 2 points each. We'll just double check. Torpedo belt. Yes, yep. So when we actually go to cause the damage, those 6s become 4s. Where are we? 4, 4, and 5 goes to a 3. I mean, that's still 11 points there, which is not fantastic. And then we have another 7 points here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it's 18 points of damage right now, plus the 3 from earlier, and then we're going to roll to see whether we generate any additional criticals. 1 conversion, 4. That is an engine problem. A 6 on the engine. Let's have a look. Oh, wonderful. A fuel explosion. So, now what happens is you basically take, this is the highest level on the chart. But when it's a devastating weapon and you roll for this value, you actually take every subsequent piece before it, which is not good. So we're going to start down the bottom. So it's -1 flank speed. I'm just marking things down here off the side that you can't see. Takes an additional point of damage. Takes an additional 2 points of damage. Takes an additional 3 points worth of damage. -1 flank speed. Needs to move 3 inches before each turn, and it only has a move of 5, so, sorry, move of 4, and we're down to 2, so can't turn. -1 flank speed, so now it actually can't move at all, it's a floating wreck. Flank speed reduced to 0, well there we go, and d6 additional damage, an extra 3. Let's mark a number, get some more of these damage markers out. That was a big hit, and it's scary to think that I have another Megami right in front of it. And then, yeah, the fuel explosion, which is that final result, it also increases the crew critical area by 2 overall. So I'll do those in a moment. Good dice, good dice. That's another 11 points worth of damage. And this is where, like, you know, your big battleships and everything, like, they look amazing, but when they're targeted by torpedoes and when they have problems with those torpedoes and the damage that's caused, it's pretty catastrophic. But that's part of the fun of the game. Torpedoes delivered by a boat is better than by air, because you kill the ones in the air and it's like, yay, I destroyed the stuff that was like worth 20 points. Okay, bridge. Bridge hit. Sorry, had to sneeze there. Okay, so the crew area, I'm going to lose some attack dice, and I'm going to take in another point of damage. I'm also risking escalation because there's a fire currently happening. Okay, we lose some points from our anti-aircraft, which is that's actually like the best possible result, if I'm honest. Because you don't want to lose your torpedoes, you don't want to lose your light guns, and you don't really want to lose a main turret. If I am crippled, I will have to go and have a look at what that means, like hull point wise. If I need to get to 24 hull points, I don't think I'll get there this round because it starts with 72, but this was a big hit. So I can't move. I got a flank speed of 0, so that it's a floating, a floating pillbox essentially. We have taken 42 points of damage. Yikes! Just from those hits and the criticals, 42 points of damage. All right, I'm just going to go and mark that up, and then I'll continue to torpedo the other 2 destroyers. Okay, so 42 points of damage onto the New Mexico from what it was already had, and it is just shy of being crippled. That was a devastating attack on it. Took out more than 50% of its health in that combined shot. And yes, I still have one more Megami to shoot. That's probably going to spell the end of the New Mexico too. Man, do not let the Japanese get close. They are dangerous. Um, okay, moving across to the Americans, they've got one more destroyer to shoot. Now, his ranges are obviously further away. His torpedoes are going to be at long range and a broadside. It's not fantastic, but he could potentially hurt the the commander. So he's going to attempt that, considering that the fleet is essentially disintegrating around him. But he's also going to try and take out one of the destroyers. So I'll do the light guns for him first, which I know will be in his short range. And if I'm targeting this destroyer in here, short range, fast moving, negated by light guns, showing broadside, all that other stuff. So I'm essentially at natural fours. 2 hits, that's good, we like that. Okay, that one's going to fail because it will get reduced to 0. The 4, however, will be a successful hit. So that Fubuki takes another point of damage. And he is now successfully crippled. And so that will mean that, again, we're getting that sort of 50% mark worth of damage overall. And let's go for these torpedoes. So these are going to be, excuse me, these are extreme. Oh, hang on, let me calculate this. No, we won't fire the torpedoes because they would automatically miss, and so that would suck. The unfortunate thing is that means it's back to the Japanese moves again. So the Megami being the last. This is the last ship that will be firing this turn unless the Akagi carrier is in range. So he is also going to just try and finish off the New Mexico with a torpedo salvo. I can't salvo this way because I can only go that way, so he will technically have 2 more torpedo strafes left, but again, he can just pile on the hurt with those main guns and the light guns. So in this instance, he's going to fire 2 sets of 3 light guns into the New Mexico, and the other sets of 3 are actually going to come back onto this destroyer, and then if that one is destroyed, I'll go out to a further destroyer. So we'll do the light guns first, and I'm actually going to just roll all the profiles together. Sorry, there's only 1 set of light guns there. Onto the destroyer. Restricted, so 6 goes down to, they're only restricted in arc or left, so all the light guns on the destroyer, not the, oh wait, sorry. 3 on the Megami, and then 3 on the destroyer. That's where I was getting confused. Alright, on the Megami, 2 6s, and I don't think I've got point blank. No, I won't have point blank, so the 3 will miss. But 2 6s, and again, in order for these to hurt the Idaho, I keep calling it the New Mexico, but I'm fairly sure the 3 is going to be out, and the 6 at no point blank, no light gun. That was actually a waste of a shot at the Idaho. Its armor is 6, and you have a -2 for the light guns. So that was silly. It doesn't matter. It's just the game. And moving forward onto the destroyer. Wow. In the box like everything else, please. 1 hit. And from that 1 hit, no, that's a -2. So that goes to a -1, and it doesn't even do damage. Wow, those light guns. Okay, making up for the massive hits I did earlier, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turrets onto the New Mexico. 1s always miss. 2s are going to miss in this instance, but I do have short range, and you definitely didn't move more than 6 inches, so these will all hit. No plunging fire, which means that I do need to get natural 6s here to actually do damage to the battleship. And this time I did not get any. That was the difference before I landed a couple. All right, torpedo shots. So these are -2 for torpedoes. We are back at our short range, back at our point blank range, sorry. So I'm actually on 5s right now. This is terrifying. All right, 5+, here we go. They all miss. Whole salvo misses. Okay, so the New Mexico barely lives to fight another day. And I have, let's see, I've got 1 Japanese destroyer there to go. Yeah, I've got a Japanese destroyer and then whether the Akagi is in range. I'll do those measurements, I'll round up and I'll come back. Okay, so I measured out for the Akagi and one of their light gun profiles is just in range to that lead destroyer. So we're just going to take shots with its light guns. It is at long range, so there's not much difference between their long and extreme, but we're just on that barrier for long. So -1, -2 for being a destroyer. Speed is counted by the light gun profile, and so this is natural 6s. Didn't get any, that's fine. We're going to zip across now to the last destroyer that is there. That destroyer also still has its last torpedo salvos, and so they're going to fire into the New Mexico and just try and, if I can remove it, like the points variance will be massive. So it's in their best interest to do so, because if they kill the Akagi, they still get a minor victory, but if I get more points worth out of it, it's better for me. And we're only in turn 4, so this is really good for Japan because we deprived 2 of those ships from even firing back at us. Okay, so I'll do the light guns. I'm just going to send 2 of the light guns directly backwards into the American destroyer behind me because I can't hurt the New Mexico class battleship. It's too tough. That's going to be, what are we, short range. Point blank is +1, profile is +1, destroyer is -1, speed is ignored by light guns. So we are net +1. So yes, the 3 and a 4 will hit. 2 6s will do 2 points of damage, but I can't cause criticals. Excuse the arm in the camera there. Okay, and then long range torpedoes. Now these torpedoes are not the amazing ones that were on the Megamis. These are going to be at long range, but because the Idaho is presenting a flank, that's why I'm taking the shot. I could go and risk like it being a sitting duck, but I think natural 6s, anything that hits here is just going to go through, so I'm just going to go ahead and take the shots now. And I rolled 3 6s. Torpedoes what make, like, it speeds the game up, but it keeps it fun. But they feel devastatingly dangerous when you hit with them. It's great. Alright, here we go. Okay. So, again, 5s and 6s will trigger as criticals. Oh, so there's 5 5s and 6s. Then I have torpedo belt, so that's going to be a 0. These are all going to be 1s, so that's 3 points worth of damage. 3, 6, 9, 13, 16 points worth of damage from the torpedoes. So I'll just add that together. So currently tracking 19 plus the 2, so 21 points worth of damage right now. Roll for critical conversion. So that interaction was torpedo belt reducing the damage but still dealing the damage die itself. That's a pretty significant hit. Oh dear. Okay. 4 of those torpedoes converted to critical hits. I'm just realizing you can't see what I'm spacing out there. 4 converted, so that's really bad. I suspect that the New Mexico just blew up in an amazing fireball. We'll get to that outcome in a moment. All right, so first of all, critical table. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Now these are all for the engine area that is already maxed out. So I'm going to have to check the rules as to what happens whether I reapply or re-roll. It might just simply be that the critical systems are already so damaged that they just are stack excessively damaged. But I got another vital system. So let's do the vital system first because it may render the others completely irrelevant. 3. Firefighting in engineering. Firstly, it's an extra 2d6 damage. I rolled that's another 8 damage, which will take that to 29 total. For the rest of the game, the ship cannot perform any damage control. So even if I wanted, see those red markers over on the unit card, even if I wanted to try and save New Mexico by doing some emergency repairing, I now can't do that. Huh, interesting. Okay, so let's look at what these repeated critical... If an area already has a critical score of 6 and receives another critical hit to that area, apply both the extra damage and penalty for the critical score of 6 again. Okay, so this doesn't flow, this won't flow back down the chart. This just does the number 6 again. The problem is I have to do it 3 times, and each of those is a fuel explosion of 3d6 damage. The New Mexico is toast. I'm going to roll it out, but it is absolutely cactus at this point. The critical score area increases by 1, so we actually have some additional flow-on impacts simply from the crew area getting an extra 3 points of damage associated with that. So you know what? Let's do these one at a time, and we'll just work it through. I mean, the end result is just going to be a catastrophic bang as the whole New Mexico basically just implodes. Okay, so first one, so 3d6, only 5 points of damage. That was very kind of me to only stack on 5 and add 1 crew. That's going to take us to an extra 2 damage as multiple fires rage throughout the ship. Weapon critical area increases by 1, which automatically inflicts a point of damage. Get all the markers out, but basically it's basically toast. Lose an attack dice, which again is in the anti-aircraft battery, so I'm back down to local 1 as opposed to local 3. Not that that matters. Yep, good. Okay, so now we can do the next 3d6 damage. This is hilarious. Okay, so that's 11 points worth of damage. So I'm simply going to mark this up as another 12 points of damage here. And then critical score for the crew increases by 1. So we're now at critical score for the crew of 5 as well. Heavy shrapnel, 3 more damage. -1 on any crew quality checks. Not that it really matters because I don't have a bridge, can't issue orders, and I'm losing significant amounts of crew, and my engine room is on fire. Everything's bad. Just everything is bad, and I'll get to the damage in a second, the total damage that is. And then we're going to go the third fuel explosion, which adds on another 10 points worth of damage. Good golly, Miss Molly. All right. And we get another, we get a hull breach, 3 more damage. Oh, this is hilarious. Okay, so through the different areas of the critical table, they can actually hop between each other and re-trigger events and things to go bang. Our engine crew area just got another critical and increased by 1. And so we actually have to do another fuel explosion, which is going to directly feed back into another critical crew area, which is another explosion. All right, so sort of, I'm just going to roll it out because I just want to see how much damage we can generate now. So that's 12 points worth of damage. Just going to make that there. Critical score for the crew increases by 1 more. So now we've maxed out our crew weapon areas. And that's actually going to force a 2d6 explosion. And the weapon critical area is going to go up by 1. Another 8 points worth of damage. Weapons go up by 1. That takes us to level 2, which is -2 on attack dice. 1. Okay, so my light weapons all just got -2. Critical crew area increases by 1, which generates another explosion. It does another 9 points of damage. I'm going to have to start marking these off on d6s down here. Another 9 points worth of damage increases the weapon area. So one of our turrets has blown up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rerolling 5 is a 6. Okay, back rear turret. The last one has to roll a 4+, and we take another 3 points worth of damage. Okay, and that ends the cacophony of explosions that run through the ship. Now, let me just do some quick math here. Yeah, okay, so I just totaled up very quickly in my head, and it's about, it's just shy of 100 points worth of damage. The Idaho had nowhere near that amount left. But just those concentrated torpedo, 4 sets of torpedo salvos plus 20 main gun rounds, and yeah, that was insane. So we're in a position now with the Americans will have 1 set of torpedoes on this destroyer, and technically there's a destroyer way off in the background over there that has fully loaded torpedoes, but he simply has refused to enter the fight. They've lost all of their cruisers and their battleship. Their aircraft carrier will potentially be at risk. We still have 3 turns to play for the mission, but it's only going to get worse from here. So America is probably going to have to sell themselves pretty dearly and chase down that carrier to try and score their portion of the mission. So they're going to rely on aircraft, and they're going to rely on that last destroyer getting there and getting in range to cause damage. Wow. Well, I'm going to put some smoke markers on the Idaho battleship. I'm going to take some more photos of where we are. Then I'm actually going to I can resolve the dogfights now actually. So this first dogfight up the front, American dice first, followed by Japanese dice. 3, 2. Okay, so the Americans win that one. And there's one actually in the back behind the smoke at the very, sorry, wrong finger, the very end here. American dice first, a 1, a 4, so the Japanese win that one. Dogfighting, very, very interesting, holding things in place. None of the anti-aircraft systems were in range or took out damage, so yeah, that's all just as it is. Just trying to assess how this is all going to work for the next turn. All right, I'll take some photos and then I'll clean up the ships that were sinking, wrecks and explosions, and the parts of the Idaho that are scattered all across the islands now. And yeah, we'll go into the next turn. Okay, and I've just quickly run in and done some photos on the movement for turn 5, and I've actually gone through and already done the combat for turn 5. It's a bit of a mop-up stage, so I saved some of that dice rolling. It wasn't anything too entertaining. There could have been, as there was a torpedo strike coming in against the carrier. Unfortunately, the carrier, with its point defense anti-aircraft fire, took down the torpedo bomber, so that was it. It wasn't able to do anything else. Two more of the American destroyers are on fire and bleeding, and the last one is actually crippled. It's only got, I think, 2 hit points left, and it's up against basically still the entire Japanese fleet, which is in pretty good condition, all things considered. They've got one of the Fubukis was a little bit damaged, but other than that, it actually is in pretty good nick. So that's not fantastic. For the Americans, they pretty much have lost this mission. Their reserve destroyer refused to come on, still has not made it on, so he hasn't entered the battle. The aircraft carrier it still has, 12, it still has about 15 aircraft to launch, but can only typically do 1 a turn, maybe 2 with orders. And it's probably about to be sought out by a stack of dive bombers and torpedo bombers, which is not good. So yeah, I think we're probably in a position to call it. There is one last possible chance where the Americans could get that set of bombers, torpedo bombers, to the carrier. And if they manage to do that, they might be able to deliver a strike, because dogfighting happens at the end of the gunnery phase, which means that they'll be eligible to choose as a ship immediately. But that will depend on who gets initiative, because if the Japanese get the initiative, not only will they attempt to put ships deliberately in the way to get anti-aircraft shots, they can just move their fighters that are over on the wing here and just fly them across and destroy them. So yeah, a couple more rolls to go that I'll do off camera as we wrap this turn up and take these dead destroyers away, and then it should be into victory points. Okay, the Japanese again have the initiative, which is really not good for the US. So we're into now what is turn 6, I believe, and so most of the maneuvering was all in Japan's favor, because there are only 3 pieces on the tabletop belonging to the US, and they were forced to move something, and all the aircraft move at the end after all the ships. So yeah, that meant that they couldn't even get the aircraft out of the way. So we've got torpedo bomber, 2 sets of fighters taking on these ones. There's a set of fighters in the back corner up here, taking out the last reserves. The Yorktown US aircraft carrier chose to tactically retreat and give up 25% of its points. And we're about to roll some dice that pretty much is going to kill off everything. So I can still shoot the destroyer even though my aircraft are attacking overhead. It's not considered blocking line of sight or anything. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to start with the aircraft carrier, continuing to pour fire into it. Longer or slightly stronger light guns first. All miss. Weaker, all miss. Okay, maybe I am more worried about hitting my fighters than I thought. Now it passes over to the, oh sorry, there is an anti-aircraft shot from that destroyer. Miss. Okay, great. the destroyer is going to shoot its one shot and rear turrets to the Fubuki and try and hurt it. Gets a hit, gets a point of damage, fighting valiantly to the end. Well done. I'm simply going to choose not to shoot any other ships at it because I want to blow it up with the torpedo bomber. So we'll go straight into the dogfighting space. Here we go. So these dogfights should be pretty simple. So the one on the far left, a US, rolls a 6, but that's -2 for their bombers, and they rolled a 2. So ironically, they actually fight off and kill the 0, so I'll do that in a second. The scrum in the middle here, US rolls a 5, which is at -2, because torpedo bombers are -2. And there's 2 sets of fighters coming in, so it's +4 to my roll, which I rolled a 6. I did bounce the 5, but I rolled a 6. So those torpedo bombers are definitely out. And now we come into, let's see if I can roll the hit for the torpedo bomber. It's a 5+ to hit, so it's not great, but let's see if I can get it. I did. I got a 5+. Okay. Let's do the damage conversion. Okay, just briefly had a look at my reference. That torpedo is 4 damage dice and it's devastating. This is obviously maybe a little bit overkill on a destroyer, but it's the last valid target, so. Okay, ironically, I only got 7 points worth of damage. That's just enough to kill the destroyer, barely, if it was at full health. I obviously, yeah, okay, so it's dead. And that leaves America with, let's see if that last last ship, let's see if it comes in from reserve or whether it stays. It stays. So it's I need to confirm whether that gives up any points or not. But yeah, that will be the end of the game. That fighter squadron was destroyed. Wow. All right. So we're at, about turn 6, I think it was, and Japan has come out with a very strong win. So the Akagi still stands, and they definitely have killed more points worth than what the Americans did. So I'll go tally it all up and get the exact ratio. Okay, that's the end of the game. As you will see, I was going through totaling up those points, and the Japanese won very significantly, which you can probably tell. Not least of which was the 465-point Idaho blowing up to Kingdom Come and spreading stuff all throughout the relative countryside. So the total victory points, the Japanese losses was only 370 points, which was mainly actually the Furataka at 225 blowing up. But he did quite a bit of damage before he went, so that was good. The US lost 1,075 points worth of material. That's including the tactical withdrawal and obviously the aircraft on both sides. But essentially between the Portland, Chicago and the Idaho, that was almost sort of 700 points worth of stuff. So that's quite considerable. The Japanese only had to get 50% more points than their opponent for their attrition major victory condition, so they met that. But the US were unable to destroy the Akagi carrier, and so that means that they get no victory points. It's just straight loss, major loss for them. And so Japan ends out on top. Interesting game, lots of fun. Aircraft carriers and aircraft really add another element to it. And battleships need to be protected. They are not as good as what we thought necessarily straight away. It's not really, they can't go toe to toe with certain types of things. They get taken out. But it accumulated almost 170 points worth of damage, which was huge. Enough to kill it almost 3 times, I think. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like what you saw. Let us know whether you like this format. We're trying a few things. Obviously, I'm trying a few things differently. And yeah, we'll see you soon.